Call to order the Tuesday, July 30th meeting of the Comox Valley Regional District. I'll first like to recognize that we're meeting on the unceded and traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. The first item of order is a recommendation to go into camera due to certain sections of the community charter. And those are 91A, because personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the regional district, or another position appointed by the regional district. 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land. 91G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the regional district. 91J, information that is prohibited or information that, if were presented in a document, would be prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Privacy Protection Act. 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting proposed provision of a regional district service. And finally, that the in-camera portion convene immediately following the open portion of the meeting. Moved second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have adoption of the minutes. How would you like to proceed? Would you like to adopt both at once or separately?
Yeah, move adoption of both sets of minutes.
Director Freese? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Business arising from minutes. We have the Comox Valley Water Treatment Project, and I'm going to give it over to Mr. Dyson to explain.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors. This is just reporting out the decision that was made in camera. The matter was considered in camera as negotiations on a contract with AECon were in process. The matter has now been made public in a press release. It was with respect to the water treatment project, and it was enabling us to execute an agreement with AECon for the construction of the water treatment project up to a maximum of $111,600,000 and directing that the financial plan be amended accordingly. This matter is on the agenda just to report out a matter that was considered in camera for the public record.
I'll move receipt. Second.
Any opposed? Okay, carried. I did that fast, sorry. Petitions and delegations, we don't have any. So I'm going to move on to reports. Board of Variance. Great. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Sorry, I should have asked if anyone had comments on those minutes or variance. No? Okay. Number 2, Black Creek Oyster Bay Services Committee. Okay. Any comments? Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We have recommendations then.
Recommendations 1 to 3.
Second.
Would we like to read out all the recommendations, or is that all?
Sure, I can do that. The 2 recommendations from the Black Creek Oyster Bay. The first is to request a meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing at the Union of British Columbia UBCM convention. That request has been made, but this is just to clarify that. And the subsequent resolution is the committee just making notice that they wish to proceed with the third well water project, but that the allocation of water would be subject to the water committee to undertake, which is the practice.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept both recommendations. And was that seconded? Director Grieve? Comments?
Yeah.
Director, hold on, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Vice Chair. A little tangential here. It made me think, does the CVRD have plans to meet with any other ministers? And maybe we talked about this. I know I've sent some info to the CAO. Is it too late to ask for meetings, or? where are we on that?
Yes, we may be beyond the deadline. Generally, the regional district will organize those meetings with ministers that reflect the interests of the electoral areas, and seeing that the municipalities have their own opportunity. Once meetings are secured, we will confirm with all board members as to what those meetings are and the subjects in the event that we want to enable you to participate in those meetings as well.
And with respect to the sewage commission wanting more money from the government, any thoughts on that?
There's always the opportunity at UBCM to meet with staff. They are available throughout the convention, so that's an opportunity for us, as well as during the receptions when ministers are available for casual conversations. There's the opportunity of exploring it with them as well.
I understand. Thanks very much.
I have Director Grieve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the staff, I guess. Now, this football's been kicked back and forth across the Oyster River now for about 2.5 years. And my understanding is that the communication has gone back and forth quite often. And although all our deliberations for this committee have been in the public, the SRD have kept it all in camera. And we don't really know where we stand at this point, except that we were basically kept in the dark. Does the CAO have any correspondence from the SRD relating to their in-camera meeting of last week?
Mr. Chair, pardon me, Madam Chair, and just to clarify, are you referring to the water well project for the Black Creek Oyster Bay water system?
Correct.
Yes, to advise the board, the regional district has requested support from the Strathcona Regional District for the drilling of the well. The well will be done with support from the province from a grant that was received from them. But the property of the Black Creek Oyster Bay water system that the well is located on is the Oyster River Nature Park, and the title to that land is held by the Strathcona Regional District for their Community Park Service. So as the director has mentioned, for the last 2 years we've been trying to seek their support for that and have not yet got that. There was correspondence that I received today from the CAO reporting on the results of the most recent meeting. And if you just bear with me. It's reported by the CAO Director, David Leach, that the SRD board met on July 24th in camera. A resolution was carried that he's permitted to share publicly, and that is that the CVRD be advised that the SRD has made its position clear and is not prepared to entertain further discussion on the matter.
So they are fully aware that about $540,000 grant hinges on this well project, and we've done all our due diligence. We've done everything in the public sphere, and this is what we get back. I'm wondering if we are on the recommendation, correct? So I just wonder if maybe a small amendment would be one last kick at this can. If we could possibly send a letter endorsed by this board asking that that the chair of the Black Creek Oyster Bay Waters Committee get to present to the SRD board on this matter, because I know we've made attempts before to ask to be a delegation and have not received permission to be a delegation. So I just think out of fairness, can we just ask one more time and reiterate the fact that there's a lot riding on this, and we've done all our engineering reports out there. We've CC'd them on pretty much all correspondence. So I think what's missing is they've never had anybody stand up in front of their board and plead this case. And I'd be willing to do that if it would be at the will of the board.
Is that an amendment or?
Madam Chair, I was just going to recommend that you deal with the two items on the agenda now, and perhaps as a subsequent resolution, consider Director Greaves' proposal.
Under new business?
Yeah.
Under new
Or-
business?
Or you could do it subsequent to this.
Okay.
It's falling out
Okay,
of
let's
the-
keep
out
it
of the
clean.
issue that's on the table, but just
Okay.
consider it as a separate resolution.
Great, thank you.
So I can bring it forward after we pass this recommendation? Okay.
All right.
I'm
So
fine
the
with
lights
that.
have gone off that we're on. Is that okay? So any other comments on the motion?
Madam Chair, if I could just seek some clarification with respect to the motion. It is with respect just to recommendation 1. I guess I'm seeking some clarity as it may have been implied that the two were combined. So the two are related.
In Surrey-Adam, those three.
So there are two recommendations there, recommendation 1 and 2, and the second recommendations deal with the 1 through 3 terms. So my understanding is that they would be considered separately, if that's the.
So we move one?
It's been moved in second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All right. Any other comments on recommendation 1? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Like to move two?
Second.
Right. Comments? Questions? Okay, all those in favor? Oh,
I just wanted to advise that as the director responsible for Oyster River Nature Park,
sorry.
and the taxes coming straight from my electoral area and no other jurisdiction pays for the Oyster River Nature Park, and I'm fully in favor of drilling the third well in the park. And this behavior that's happening up there is unacceptable to me. That a separate jurisdiction would interfere with the business of the Black Creek Oyster Bay Committee and the CVRD board, who are entitled to have a water well there and has received a provincial grant. I don't really believe, because I've been very convincing as I can be, I really don't believe that they're going to cooperate. And I think we need to go above them and go right to the ministry and get an order from the ministry to quit the behavior and start cooperating with the CVRD board on this water issue. Because it's a very urgent water issue. We have to have that well completed by March.
I have Director Arbor.
So I'd propose just a slight adjustment to Dr. Greaves' proposed motion.
I think we'll.
You're going to bring it up
Yeah,
separately?
We're going to do separate.
Oh, we haven't voted on this yet?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Keep it clean.
Okay. And Director Grieve, do you have a comment?
Speaking
on-
to this one, yeah. I just want to ask staff, what is our absolute drop-dead date on beginning this drilling? We could possibly push it ahead to, because I understand we've been told there is going to be no further extensions. We've had 2 extensions so far, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so a third extension would be probably whistling Dixie.
Madam Chair, I'll just ask General Manager Mark Rutten to answer the question with respect to the drop-dead date or the scheduling of drilling the well.
Yeah, thank you, through the CEO and through the chair. So we won't be receiving another extension to the grant. Like you said, we've already received 2, and it was made clear to us when we got the second one that there wouldn't be any further extensions. In terms of the project, we do require 8 or 9 months to implement this project. We have progressed the engineering to a point where it's shelf ready, and we could issue the contract fairly quickly after getting permission to proceed with entering the park and drilling the well. So, when Chris was last up here, he said we're at the drop dead point now. So I would say, we need something by the end of August, by early September at the latest, in order to move this project forward and get it complete by the March deadline.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on recommendation 2? Oh, Director Frisch.
Well, I don't really want to drag this out, but I'm aware that many of us aren't familiar with the issue, and I don't know if there's a very quick synopsis of the players that are involved here and what the holdup is, if you're interested, if the board's interested in learning more at this point.
Who would be willing to give a Coles Note version? Mr. Dyson?
The Black Creek Oyster Bay water system provides water to residents within electoral area D of the Strathcona Regional District and electoral area C of the Comox Valley Regional District. It predates the splitting of the regional district, the Comox Strathcona Regional District. When the split happened, the ministry decided that the service would continue. It would be administered by the Comox Valley Regional District, and for the purposes of decision-making, because it's done at a committee with the two electoral area representatives, the Area D representative from Strathcona Regional District would participate in that committee and be part of the decision-making. The water that we draw on comes from two sources: a filtration gallery on the Oyster River and wells that are located in the Oyster River Nature Park. We have built a state-of-the-art treatment facility within the Oyster River Nature Park in order to provide water to the service area. But we are in need of improved capacity for the system. The filtration gallery is not reliable during the summer months, and the intention of the well is to provide a more fulsome provision of water from groundwater sources. In order to help fund this, the regional district applied to the ministry to a grant program, and they funded a grant in the order of about $540,000 towards this project to drill the well. 2 years ago, we approached the regional district to seek their permission because they have title to the property because of the nature park, and at that time it was refused. There were a number of issues identified, including wanting better communications, all of which we have responded to improve communications, copy them, Strathcona Regional District staff on our reports or otherwise, and improve that and respond to it. The one other provision they said, though, is that there needs to be a benefit to the rest of electoral area D. The administration of the Strathcona Regional District appears to desire a means to help solve water issues to the broader part of Area D. I don't quite understand the details of that, but that has been a position that's been brought to the regional district. There are means and ways for water to be extended beyond the boundaries of a current service area. We have not been approached by any property owner or other entity to ask for an extension or otherwise. But there are means and ways for us to address and the committee to decide whether an extension would occur. So those matters should be decided outside the consideration of whether the well proceeds or not. As mentioned, all of our requests and consideration on this matter have been done fully in the open meetings. None of them have been done in camera, but the requests and asks for support from Strathcona are dealt with in camera. We've made various requests to be delegations to those meetings to present our case to the board and have been denied those opportunities. And so it now comes down to 2 requests for extension for the grant in order for us to enable the well to be drilled. No more requests will be granted, and there is time required between the now and the deadline to actually physically get the work done in order to make the claims. And as our engineer has said, we're getting to the point where we may not be able to complete that work, or we may just have to advise the committee that we can't proceed with this work and to relinquish the grant.
Thank you very much.
Director Grieve.
Well, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but just in round figures, how much money have we already spent on this project?
That is putting us on the spot, but
It's never like to round off things. They want
those are questions that
Okay.
we can definitely prepare for and
Get back to
advise
me later.
the BCOB service committee.
Okay, I'm sure it's substantial. It's been going on for quite a while. The only point I wanted to make to add to our CAO's comment was the fact that there was a delegation down in Victoria to talk to the ministry regarding the capacity of the aquifer, and I want to make the point that there is no point in us asking for any increase in our water license, because the capacity is pretty well maxed out. That according to, was it AECOM that did that, or no?
Throughout the project, we've been advised by GW Solutions.
Solutions, yeah.
They're a hydrogeological engineer.
Yeah.
And we've also been advised by the various ministries that have the authority for issuing licenses. So there are all sorts of conditions on drawing water from the
Yeah.
wells and the river that we will have to adhere to ensure that we protect fish habitat and water for other purposes.
So the extra capacity is what's needed, not an increase in license. We're not looking to market this water. We're just looking to have the security that we lack in the drier summer months because of the infiltration gallery. So that has been made clear too, and I think that's been made clear to SRD as well.
Director Lee.
Thank you. I just wanted to correct one impression that was given in Mr. Dyson's summary. When I'm here at this board, I am an extraterritorial director of this board. I am not here representing Strathcona, and I have no obligation to report BCOB issues to Strathcona because the BCOB water system is not within their jurisdiction. In the letters patent, it is owned and operated by the Comox Valley Regional District, of which I am an extraterritorial director of the Comox Valley Regional District. So I'm not representing Strathcona in any way when I'm here. They've put me in an awkward position because on that board, they've put this issue in camera. And they've never lifted it from it. I tried to lift it. They won't lift it from in camera. So it's a very awkward thing for me because I'm all in favor of what the Black Creek Oyster Bay Services Committee is doing. I've sat on that committee for 26 years. That water system is being run superbly by the directors that sit on that committee and the board. And there's been, we're offering equal quality water to anywhere on the North Island, equal to the quality of water that Campbell River provides the north end of Area D, and we're doing it at a third of the price that they're selling it to the northern part of Area D for. So it's a very fair system. It's been very well managed and overseen by Directors Grieve and I for the past, you've been there 9 years now? 11, and I've been there 26, and there's never been a problem until now. And they're using, in my opinion, SRD are using their title to the land for the Area D Nature Park, which Area D taxpayers only pay for, to block this project. And it's unreasonable what's happening. So I don't think talking to them anymore is going to change their obstinance. I think we need to go and talk to the ministry and ask them to make a ruling, or else we just proceed with the project and let them take a court injunction out against us if they have to. Because the judge will laugh them out of court if they go in there and say, we don't want them to drill this well. It was designated by the government as both a park and a water treatment center, and we do have the right to take water from that land. So there you go.
Director Swift.
Thank you. In light of this timeline, which looks to be rather tight, I'm just wondering, in spite of the fact that we've just passed the motion to go to the UBCM, I'm wondering if an earlier meeting would be possible and more desirable, because it sounds like it's going to be too late.
Does staff want to comment on that, or?
You're right. It probably would be better to meet sooner than later, and we can, if it's the desire of the board or the committee, we can seek that from the province, from the minister as well. Yep.
Okay. So maybe we can finish. We haven't passed recommendation 2, but it looks like there's further recommendations. So if there are any other questions or comments on recommendation 2, it was moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay. So I think we may have subsequent motions. Director Grieve.
Well, I'm listening to Director Swift there, and I don't know what my colleague on this committee thinks, but I do think that sooner is better than later. So if there seems to be appetite at the board, I would make a third recommendation that a meeting with the ministry be expedited on this matter, and that the director from Area D and Area C and CAO organize a meeting with the ministry to resolve this very timely issue because of the fact that the clock is ticking. So however you want to put that in there, Jake.
I just want to ask staff, is this like an amendment to recommendation 1? Or
Well, I
a
think we
brand
should
new
keep the door open for a UBCM meeting
Okay.
anyway in case we're refused, because we need to get in there. But if we can certainly, as a recommendation 3, if we can, and further that we make one last appeal to SRD to appear as a delegation before them to present the case.
Okay, I just want to make sure Jake's got that. Okay, so moved by Director Grieve. Do we have a second?
I would propose an amendment, and that would be, don't bother approaching them. They've refused to listen to, Russell Dyson has requested to meet with them. They refuse. So I wouldn't waste time and energy on them at this point because we've been refused more than once. And I think we need to go straight to the ministry and just say how many times we've already approached. The CVRD's already approached them and has been refused. I mean, if you want to have the door slammed in your face one more time, go ahead, but I don't think they're going to listen.
The question here
Honestly.
is this strictly then areas C and D voting, even from the board, but it's going to carry the power of the board because it's going through the chair. Okay.
Okay, Director Arbor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I like the idea of one final salvo, so to speak.
No, it hasn't.
I think what I was going to propose is maybe, and I like the thought of obviously maybe a meeting with the ministry if it's possible, but I think a letter from our chair copying the ministry as a final kind of ask of the SRD, but copying the ministry on this letter from our chair on behalf of the board of the regional district, providing a little bit of the synopsis and then asking for them to reconsider one final time. I think that ink on a one pager to them is not going to take that long, and it's going to send a message that comes from the entire board rather than what to this point has been mostly the Black Creek Oyster Bay Committee.
Okay. I just want to point out Director Grieve's motion hasn't been seconded.
Oh, okay.
Seconded. Great. Thank you.
So
Director
that was a
Fresh.
friendly, I guess.
Yeah, well, I would echo the sentiment of Director Arbor that, one last plea is, it wouldn't take much, and I am aware that this board is trying to maintain good relations with the SRD board, and that could somewhat be in play here. Did that spark some conversation? In any case, it would be great to invite their chair and CAO to the meeting with the minister so that they can have an opportunity to explain their side.
Great.
But I'll leave it up to those who have been in the thick of it for a while.
Director Grieve.
Maybe we should separate those two motions. I think regardless, a meeting has to be arranged sooner than later with the ministry. And I think that the participants should be the participants of that committee, of that service. And then maybe a second recommendation would be to give one more salvo up over the bow and make one more request from the board to appear as a delegation. So I'd be willing to separate those two. What do you think, Jake?
Is that a separate motion? Yeah.
So we'll keep them separate, as clean as we can keep this.
Okay.
So who seconded it? Okay, so you're okay with that? Okay.
Okay. So on the first motion, I still have Director Lee.
Well, I just want to make sure that people, again, understand that the chair of the SRD has zero jurisdiction over Black Creek Oyster Bay water. That is a separate regional district. Inviting the chair of the SRD to attend any meetings regarding BCOB is inappropriate because it's outside of the jurisdiction of the chair of the of the SRD. It's outside their jurisdiction under the letters patent.
That's understood, and it's in the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have the first motion that's been first and seconded regarding sending a letter and then meeting with the minister at earliest convenience. Is that the, okay. Requesting the meeting with the minister. Are there any other comments to that motion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, so we have a subsequent motion?
Subsequent
Does that
motion
need to
would be to send a letter from the chair requesting to appear as a delegation
Okay.
for the SRD.
Okay. Do I have a second?
And the thing of it is that we can ask them to consider reconsideration on their decision, because until the minutes are received at their next meeting, there is a possibility to reconsider without having to back things up.
And I think I saw Director Frisch is seconding.
Just us.
Okay.
Just the two?
All right, so for that, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And I'd like to thank the board for its discretion.
Great. Thanks, everyone. You were supposed to make it easy on me. All right. I guess. All right, we're going to move on to the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of July 15th. Second. Any comments on receipt? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We have recommendations?
Move on.
Okay. Would those who move, could you speak out for the video?
Motion, recommendation number one, that the board approve development variance permit DV4C19 on the property described as Lot D, Block 29, Comox District, Plan EPP 81926. PID 030-440-793, which is 2330 Macaulay Road, to allow for retaining walls up to 4.5 meters in height within the required side and rear yard setback areas, a 1.8 meter tall chain link fence on top of the retaining walls, and an increase of the maximum number of fascia signs on one building from 1 to 2, and the total area of the fascia signage be from 6 to 7.2 square meters on that building.
And finally,
That the corporate legislative officer be authorized to execute the permit.
great, thank you. Seconded, first and second. Any comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Recommendation number 2,
I'll move it.
Start reading.
start reading.
Do you have my mic on?
Of course, sorry.
Project.
That the board approve the development permit DP7C19 for the development of 3 new light industrial commercial buildings with a work storage yard, and finally that the corporate legislative officer be authorized to execute the permit.
First and seconded? Okay, any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation number 3,
I can keep going if you want.
excellent.
Move the recommendation 3 that the board approve the development permit DP5A19 that Yukon Inc. For the construction of 2 buildings connected by a trellis walkway, parking area, drainage infrastructure, landscaping, and related site work. And further, that the corporate legislative officer be authorized to execute the permit.
We have it moved? Seconded? Any comments?
Shouldn't there be wisteria on the lattice?
You can send the recommendation. Any opposed? Carried.
Recommendation 4, move it.
Second?
That the board give first and second reading to bylaw 520-2019, being the rural Comox Valley zoning bylaw number 520-2019. And finally, that pursuant to section 464(1) of the Local Government Act, RSBC, 2015, C.1, the board schedule a public hearing for bylaw 520, being the rural Comox Valley zoning bylaw number 520-2019.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Recommendation number 5.
I'll move it.
Director
I got the
Reeve?
mic on still.
Yeah. Director
That the
Grant.
draft memorandum of understanding attached to the staff report dated July 5th, 2019, between Ministry of Transportation and the Comox Valley Regional District in regards to the general processes for planning and implementing active transportation infrastructure within provincial road dedication in unincorporated areas be approved. And further, this memorandum of understanding be sent to the local municipalities and the Integrated Regional Transportation Select Committee for receipt. And further, that the final memorandum of understanding be signed by staff. And finally, that staff be directed to explore regional greenway planning in support of this memorandum of understanding.
Okay, we have the recommendation moved and seconded. I don't see any comments. Oh, hold on.
I'd
Director
be
Frisch.
surprised if we didn't get a comment.
I'll jump in. Well, just because I actually don't know much about this, and maybe somebody wants to fill me in.
Come to our meeting.
Madam Chair, I can ask the Acting General Manager of Community Services, Doug DeMarzo, to give an explanation of this.
Thank you. To the chair, to the directors. I guess this initiative began to unfold in about late 2017. We started looking and working with Modi and understood there was some gaps in how we could process active transportation corridors within their road network. At this time, we also spoke with a number of other regional districts on the island and realized they were having the same challenges. So with that intent, we decided to move forward with the intent of setting a cooperative set of principles, basically, on how the Ministry of Transportation and a number of regional districts would move forward in seeking better active transportation corridors. The MOU lays out that general framework. It doesn't quite go to the extent of the design process, but we're still working with the Ministry of Transportation to look at further analysis of what this MOU moves for design with a consultant that they've hired. So this is the first step in that process. And since then, you may be aware the province has also picked up on the initiative and has looked across the province to also promote active transportation through some more policy alignment. So I think it was really the start of this initiative, and it's the number of regional districts working together and Modi being cooperative and hiring a consultant through Urban Systems to help drive this agenda.
Excellent. Well, yeah, thanks for that. And that's obviously sounds like wonderful news. Getting the ball rolling on active transportation in rural areas is obviously important to the IRTSC, but especially to those electoral area committee members, I bet.
Yeah, much. Looking forward to that. So I don't see any other comments. All those in favor of recommendation 5? Any opposed? Carried. Recommendation 6. Now, it's correspondence intended for receipt only prior to consideration of the recommendation.
I'll move the receipt of Director Green's letter.
Second. Would anyone like to speak to it?
Say that. I'm not going to belabor this group too much longer, but no, it has to do with revisiting something we revisited a few years ago, and it was a unified garbage contract with weekly recycling that, if it had been approved, would have probably reduced everybody's garbage collection bills by about 2/3. At the time, of course, MMBC was offering their first uptake, and it was a good chance we could have got on board. I think Director Arbor is the only person that received the benefit of that with Royston. But it was a valley-wide referendum. It was soundly defeated by 70%. I remember my neighbor telling me it was a tax grab by the RD. But now we're in a different era, I think, and when I was knocking on doors, I was being asked about this question. So at least we're going to open up the conversation again. It may not be quite as universal as the first concept, maybe a little more targeted at the denser, more urban areas of the RD. So just that's my little letter was just in there, just to kind of as a comment on the fact that before the social media, what do they call them, keyboard warriors get a hold of this, that we need to have an adult discussion about diversion, because right now we're, as we say, we're probably putting about half of what we need to in the landfill, and we could be recycling so much more. And that's without organics, maybe not quite half, but we can certainly make a big dent in it. So bringing forward the discussion one more time, I think it needs to be had, and I just ask you to receive my letter.
Great. Director Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I guess my question would be, you're looking for support from municipalities as well, or is this something that you see the electoral areas taking on their own?
Well, it would probably be something that we would do on our own jurisdiction, because the city already has their contracts, correct?
Right.
You know, they already do it, whereas we're all served by, I think, 3 private haulers. So, and none of them collect the recyclables. So I think, you know, we can have a lot of discussion whether or not to keep it private, whether to go totally public, or whether to have a combination of the two, what have you. But the bottom line is we want to get those recyclables out of the residuals going into the landfill.
Well, good luck. Thanks.
Thanks to both of you. Director Arbour.
Okay, so I'm probably last. Because the motion, I suppose you're going to table the following motion?
It's just on for receipt.
But that staff bring forward, oh, we haven't
Yeah.
voted on receipt.
Okay. So on receipt, I don't see any more other comments. All those in favor? Any opposed? Now, do we have a subsequent motion, or Director Arbour, were you thinking of?
You want to bring it forward?
Yeah, I just have one little Is this your motion, Dr. Because I had, before we read it and try to pass it, I just have a question about the feasibility services for Bainsound / Denman Hornby Islands, and whether that was intentional or it was just for Bainsound that was meant here. Or whether it's envisioned that there would be a potential service for Hornby and Denman as well. Because we have different feasibility, I believe, for the islands.
Yeah, so this reflects the recommendation of the Electoral Area Services Committee, and the information will be brought back to them for any consideration and refinement as to what the service area might be.
Okay, so I'm amenable to read the motion as stated then. So that staff bring forward additional information on the proposed roadside waste collection service within the CVRD electoral areas, including service boundaries, contract approach, operating requirements, cost for service delivery, and public assent process. And further, that staff identified the specific funding requirements to be allocated in the 2020 financial plan from each of the feasibility services for Bainsound, Denman, Hornby Islands, Electoral Area A, Lezo North, Electoral Area B, and Puntledge Black Creek, Electoral Area C, to support the necessary public assent process and communication efforts. Yeah, I just did.
So that's a motion put forward. Do we have any comments, or? I have one comment. I know when this came forward, I did get some emails regarding bear attracting when recyclables and garbage are put out. Already, I guess some residents in my area, they don't get garbage collection because of the potential of bear attractants. So if staff could direct whoever is doing the feasibility study to have a look at what potentially other regions do to minimize bear issues. Okay. Director Arbour?
Yeah, and just a last point, I mean, we talked about this at the EASC for quite a while, but I think we expect a range of options as well in the public assent process, whether it's referendum or petitioning process, or what are the best options to bring this to the table. I think we should remain open to.
Great.
Thank you.
Director Kettler.
Yeah, Justin, in regard to the bear comment, we do have a bear aware program, and it's the timing of when you can put it out that is really key. And then we've also had quite an aggressive ticketing program, which has really decreased the bear-human interactions around the garbage in our community. So,
Great, thank you. All right. Any other comments on that motion? Okay, and that I've just asked staff, this is a vote for everyone. So all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, moving on. Sewage Commission, we have the minutes from July 16th on for Any comments? No? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Comox Valley Water Committee of July 16th, 2019 for receipt. Right, comments, questions? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We have the minutes of the Comox Valley Sports Center Commission of July 16th. Moved and seconded. Any comments? Questions? Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We have the minutes of the Committee of the Whole for June 27th, 2019. Moved. Director Arbor, second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Minutes of the Committee of the Whole, July 16th, 2019. Moved and seconded by Director Arbor. Comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, so we have recommendations from the Committee of the Whole. Recommendation number 1. Director Arbor.
Move that the presentation from Carl Butterworth, Vancouver Island University, provided at the July 16th Committee of the Whole meeting be received, and that the board provide a letter of support for the proposed Seafood Innovation Center at the Deep Bay Marine Field Station as requested.
All right, moved and seconded. Any comments? All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Director Fish, did you have a comment on that?
Move the second recommendation. I'll move that the presentation from Dan Hawkins, Comox Valley Chamber of Commerce, provided at the July 16, 2019 Committee of the Whole meeting be received, and that a letter of support or proclamation be provided to acknowledge the work of the Comox Valley Chamber of Commerce for the last 100 years.
Second, moved and seconded. Comments? No. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation number 3, I have Director Grieve.
Move 3, that the matter of electoral area B participation in the Sewage Commission be referred to the Sewage Commission for further consideration of appointing the Area B Director as a non-voting member for a temporary period of time to be determined by the Sewage Commission.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Okay. It's only going to be voted on by, it looks like, Courtney and Comox. So, okay. So, and D&D, sorry. But, okay. So any other comments on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we have recommendation number 4, Director Frisch.
I'll move that the Comox Valley Regional District endorse the formation of the Comox Valley Food Policy Council and direct staff to identify opportunities for collaboration with the Food Policy Council once established in support of CVRD services and strategic priorities, and provide in-kind assistance as requested with regards to meeting space.
It's moved and seconded. Comments? Great. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Recommendation 5, Director Grieve. Oh, Director
Okay, you
Warren.
better read it.
That electoral area Director Hamir and electoral area Director Grieve, representing the Comox Valley Regional District, be appointed to the Comox Valley Food Policy Council for the remainder of the 2018-2022 term of office, and further that I have trouble with this word. Remuneration and expenses be paid, provided remuneration and/or expenses are not paid directly by the external organization.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments?
We're going to give you a basket
All
of
those
food
in
like
favor?
this one.
Yeah. Any opposed? Carried. Maybe they'll give blueberries. All right, Director Fresh.
Now move that the framework presented in this staff report dated July 9th, 2019 to guide the Comox Valley Regional District Strategic Planning Session for fall 2019 be approved.
Moved. Durant, any comments? Oh, Director Arbor.
Just note in my agenda, the staff report is not attached, so I don't know if that can be done subsequently or whether I'm the only one missing.
I think it's just a typo, maybe.
Maybe it should have said the staff report. Oh,
Madam Chair, so I believe the staff report then is attached to the minutes of the actual meeting, so it's not attached to this agenda. It can be located in the minutes of the committee of the whole. Yep.
all right. Any other comments? All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Moving on to the Integrated Regional Transport Select Committee. Moved and seconded. Comments? Questions? Okay, on receipt, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have a recommendation. And Director Fresh.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll move that whereas transportation is a growing issue within the Comox Valley, and whereas the establishment of unified regional policies and strategic transportation plans, which incorporate all modes of transportation, is aligned with the goals and objectives of the CVRD growth strategy. The Comox Valley Regional Growth Strategy. Therefore, be it resolved that the board directs staff to engage with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, the School District Number 71, and the member municipalities regarding the development of a regional transportation implementation agreement and provide a summary report of the feedback and other considerations respecting this proposed initiative with a focus on multimodal transportation, planning and advocacy tasks described in Appendix B of the staff report dated July 10th. Under the heading Service Activities Option Number 2, with a specific focus on greenhouse gas emission reductions, public education, links between communities and destinations, and active and healthy communities. And,
Yeah, sorry,
and I'll
moved and
just,
seconded.
yeah, thanks. And I'll just quickly speak to it. It's a fairly wordy motion, but in short, we're looking for support in the area to move forward with doing some sort of transportation planning and coordination for active transportation, and I think this motion speaks to that.
I don't see any other comments. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Right. Moving on to bylaws and resolutions. We have a recommendation for bylaw 520. Director Kettler.
Do we have to move receipt first before I ask questions about it?
I think we just go straight.
Okay. So this did come to Cumberland Council, and there were some recommendations that came back to this board. And I just wanted to make sure that those were included in the bylaw.
I'll ask Mr. Dyson to comment if that's okay.
Yep.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
I'll
okay,
bring
thank
forward
you.
Scott Smith, General Manager, Planning and Development Services, who can respond to the question. Thank you.
So I do know the Village of Cumberland requested that the zoning boundary around the campground be projected into the water portion of it. Staff recommended to the electoral area directors that not be done, in that the Village of Cumberland doesn't have tenure over that area. And so we didn't recommend that change be incorporated into the zoning bylaw. If the Village of Cumberland, gains tenure over that part of the water, then amendment could be considered.
Director Kettler.
Other items that came back were incorporated.
So there were a few things. So the two docks, I think currently only one of them is permitted under this new bylaw. And so if we wanted to do, I understand that it could be grandfathered, but if we wanted to do repair on it, and it wouldn't just be, I know there's probably a plan to phase out motorized boat traffic, but even if there was non-motorized permitted on the lake, we would still want these docks to be there for, dragon boat or whatever other non-motorized boats would be on that lake. So we have concerns over those docks not being permitted and then us not being to repair or replace those docks. Also included in that there was retaining wall, and we want the ability to maintain and just maintain those retaining walls, which currently it under this new zoning it didn't sound like we would be able to. The third item was the log boom that protects swimmers at that beach, and that was not permitted within this zoning. So we're concerned that if it was not permitted and we are forced to remove it, that would be a safety issue for the swimmers on that beach. So I just wanted to make sure that those specific things were addressed, and if they aren't, if the board can consider that those concerns.
And we did get back to Village of Cumberland staff, and as I indicated, and so what existing is existing there, but we checked, and essentially, to the best of our information, the Village of Cumberland doesn't have tenure with the province over those portions of the water. That there's just the legal, so the zone that is the campground zone covers the physical property, and the water portion is in a separate zone. Now, so what exists and is fine, and if the Village of Cumberland were able to, what we would recommend is the Village of Cumberland was looking to do changes to those docks and things like that. If they got like tenure from the province to be able to do that, then we would support certainly a consideration of the zone being extended to allow those uses to occur. We did respond back to the Village of Cumberland staff.
Okay, yeah, and it hasn't come back through council, but so are you saying that those docks are currently illegal because we don't have tender? Is that?
I don't want to make that judgment. It's just, I don't know when they were installed, under what circumstances they were installed, but we couldn't find any license of occupation or legal tenure over the water. And therefore, we didn't want to recommend to the electoral area directors that we extend a zone into that.
Yeah, because it was my understanding that it was like 1937 or something that you guys are working from. That document was the last.
There's an old survey that surveys
Yeah.
the land
Yeah.
portion, but the docks are in the water, right? So now, I mean, the Village of Cumberland may wish to do some resurvey work because given the age of that legal plan, you may want to, but you would probably, prior to doing any major capital expenditures in the water, you would want to have your staff look at, what's your ability to what sort of tenure do you have a right to have that infrastructure in the water?
So my concern is, though, that passing this bylaw, then we wouldn't, even if we were grandfathered in with those, be able to replace them if they deteriorated without any changes, just basic replacement. And then, did you address the log boom issue and the safety of swimmers?
So the log boom issue.
Yeah. So there's a breakwater
Yes.
that protects swimmers right now,
Yes.
and that would become illegal under this bylaw. So have we addressed that?
Well, it exists prior to the zoning bylaw. So, I mean, the zoning, I guess to answer the big question, we did not recommend to the electoral area directors to make the changes that extended the zone into the water.
Sorry, did you have a?
Yeah, I would ask then that we postpone this approval of this bylaw until there is a better correspondence between, because it hasn't come back to our council and we're not sure about the tenure and the safety of the swimmers there until this gets clarified.
Director Arbour.
Yes, well, I appreciate the concerns from Director Kettler. I mean, we're talking about the zoning bylaw for all of area A, B, and C, correct?
Yes.
And this is, I mean, we're well into the process. I think what I would say is, you know, the reason why I will vote in favor of proceeding with the bylaw and in support of staff saying that we could create an amendment later is that there's two things. One is it sounds like there's some historical amenities that exist there that are not clear in tenure or not clear on who has a liability. So I would have a concern even from our perspective that if we extend the zoning and change the zoning to recognize those assets, does that mean that all of a sudden, does that trigger some kind of, I don't know. And I don't want to know. What I know is in the sense that what we're doing is basically continuing as you know, with a zoning that's consistent. And for me, I think an amendment process, if either the CVRD and Cumberland or perhaps co-jointly look at those assets and say, how do we want to proceed? I mean, there's a discussion, because is it correct that the lake itself is inside our zoning and outside the Village of Cumberland's boundaries? Or?
Yes.
Yes. So what I would say is, you know, they are perceived as Cumberland assets currently, but they're not, you know, in the sense that they're outside your jurisdiction. So the amenities themselves, we could say, it's a CVRD question whether we should dispose of them or not. Now, I do tend to agree with you that we should look at clarifying through tenure or whatever is needed to do this, but I think that's outside a zoning process. I think that the zoning, I would be in support of looking at an amendment later and not slowing down the entire bylaw, zoning bylaw for this particular issue.
Thank you. Director Grieve.
May come as a big surprise to this board, but I wasn't around in the 1930s. Although I would definitely encourage the Village of Cumberland to explore obtaining tenure over the aquatic jurisdiction required to be able to retain these features. I think everybody will agree, if you grew up in the Comox Valley, one of the rites of passage was being able to dog paddle out to the diving board. After that, you're a real boy. So I would think that, you know, something that Cumberland could explore. But I have to agree with my learned director friend here that this is the second year that we've been trying to get this bylaw through, and a lot of it is just basically housekeeping items. We have bylaws on the books that nobody in living memory has a clue of why they're there or what the rationale was. So we've got a lot of work to do, and we have to clean it up sooner than later, and I would definitely be one that would entertain any changes at a later date should Cumberland get it figured out as how they get their jurisdiction on the water.
Thank you. Director Frisch.
I guess I was just looking for some clarity whether or not the RD actually does have jurisdiction over the water somehow.
Maybe that's a question to staff.
For the purposes of land use zoning, yes.
So we can say what can go on the water and in the water? Is that correct?
From the zoning bylaw, yes.
From the zoning bylaw
Yep.
perspective. Fair enough. Okay.
Director Morin.
Yeah, unfortunately, my computer have a crashing issue again with these items to reread them. But my question was around the liability issue also. So if the docks are not repaired and they're not under Cumberland, then are we liable for that?
I think they just broke loose the other day. What was that there too?
Is that something staff would like to comment on liability?
I don't see the regional district being liable for the features. I think that those that may have, you know, put them in place or are responsible for maintaining them or have some form of occupancy may, but I don't see the regional district.
Okay.
Director Kettler.
Yeah, so we are the landowner, and we have the Comox Lake Wilderness Society running the campsite. So just you know, you guys are in charge of the oversight and the zoning, and just so you know that, you know, the zoning will cause problems with the landowner, and that's what I'm stating now. And it seems like there's support in that Cumberland gain a tenure, so maybe I could just affirm that you guys will give a letter of support in that regard later, and we can move on with this bylaw.
Director Arbour.
I think we are open to receive requests from the Village of Cumberland.
I just want to point out, we haven't actually moved the bylaw yet. Would someone like to? Director Frisch, second? Oh, so someone want to second it? Director Grieve? And should we read out the bylaw?
Bylaw number 520, be given first and second readings concurrently.
Director Grieve, did you want to speak to it, or did I press that button
Nope.
accidentally? Okay, right. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Oh, it is ABC. Any opposed? Carried. Okay, moving on. Recommendation for bylaw 583. Director, second. And Director Arbour, would you mind reading it out?
Yes, that bylaw number 583 being Comox Valley Water Conservation bylaw be given first and second readings concurrently.
Right. Any comments? No.
There's a further, but that's the...
Right. All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
And that bylaw number 583 being Comox Valley Water Conservation bylaw 2010 amendment number 6 be given third reading.
Second.
Comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we are on recommendation for bylaw 582.
I have the mic on, so I'll move that bylaw 582 being Comox Valley Recreation Complexes fees and charges number 12, 2008 amendment number 8 be adopted.
Second.
Seconded. Any comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We're moving on to new business now. So we have correspondence for receipt.
Move receive correspondence.
Moved. Seconded. Any comments on receipt? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we have a recommendation. Would anyone like to move the recommendation? Oh, there you go.
Whereas the following bylaw has received first and second readings by the Regional District Board, bylaw number 520 being the Rural Comox Valley Zoning Bylaw number 520, and whereas pursuant to Section 464 of the Local Government Act, it is necessary to hold a public hearing on the aforementioned bylaw, therefore be it resolved that a public hearing will be held on August 28, 2019 at 7 p.m. The location of the public hearing will be at the Comox Valley Regional District Boardroom located at 550B Comox Road. The holding of the public hearing be delegated to the directors from electoral area A, B, and C, with Director Grieve designated as the chair and Director Amir as designated as first vice chair and the second vice chair respectively for the public hearing. And at least one of the above named delegates must be in attendance at the public hearing.
That's moved, seconded by Director Grant. Comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Do we have any addendum to approve? Yes.
We do.
There we go. Director Grief has seconded by Director Arbour. Question, Director Frisch.
Yeah, and I know that you sent an email about an addendum, but I'm not sure I know what the addendum is, or is it on, could you put it on the screen maybe? Yeah, that'd be cool. Is it, oh, it's that one right there? That's the addendum? Oh, okay, well, great.
Great. Okay.
Just doesn't say addendum in front of it. Because if you didn't see the first version, then you don't know that it's an addendum.
So we've just had the motion on receipt. Okay, so on receipt of the addendum.
Sorry, we're on that, the addendum be considered.
That it be considered.
Be considered.
Okay. So on consideration then, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried? And we have a requested action then?
I move receipt
On-
first of Dr. Greaves' correspondence.
That's all right. We will move receipt now.
Second.
Seconded. Comments on receipt? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Requested action now.
I'd like to move the requested action that the following grant and aid payable from Puntledge Black Creek Electoral Area C be approved. That $4,000 for the Saratoga and Miracle Beach Residents Association to assist with the community bat box building to reduce mosquitoes within the Saratoga Beach area, as well as supporting operational expenses relating to their mandate as a community society.
Second.
Seconded. Comments?
I don't know, probably nobody else at this table, perhaps Director Hamir, but would be aware of the situation that's existed for the last couple of years up in the Saratoga Miracle Beach area. I think Comox residents will know they had a brush with this certain species of mosquito that is extremely aggressive and relentless. They frighten people from northern Alberta. That's how much of a pest they are. They've got the ability to breed in brackish water, so salt water is not a deterrent. In fact, there's some indication that they can actually breed outside of water, that they arise out of people's lawns after a rain in the summertime. It's gone past an annoyance level to serious business. I've got about 68 emails in the last week from residents up there showing me their arms and legs and what have you, and I can attest going up last year when in the middle of infestation, which was conveniently right at the election time, that people came screaming back in their golf carts from the golf course with clouds of mosquitoes in tow. So it's a real serious issue. They're very difficult to control. We do not have a pest control bylaw in the regional district, so we have no budget to contain or to address this issue in any way, shape, or form. I've been in contact with our staff to see if they have any ideas, as well as the provincial staff, talking to Leanne at Ronna Ray's office to find out what their processes are and policies in their park, because Miracle Beach Park is also one of the infected areas. We have, unfortunately, we have jurisdiction only over land we own, which makes sense. And unlike the municipalities, we do not own the ditches or the roads or obviously can't go on private property where there's golf course has water features, etc. So it needs a made-in Miracle Beach solution, and the only way I can see doing that would be to empower the community itself to get together. One of the suggestions was to have a bat box building bee, a lot of bees there, and have all the plywood cut out already and have everybody come in and paint their bat boxes or whatever. Because bats are known to consume vast numbers of mosquitoes. They don't seem to mind what species they are. But it's a serious problem. As I say, we're limited in what we can do to address it. And I'd like to know what the heck the electoral area director, why he's being considered responsible for mosquitoes in the first place. But I'm going to wade in on this one. I can attest to the fact, as I say, being up there last year, that they are vicious and they wait for you to open the car doors. That's how smart they are. And they're inside your car and they're inside the house. And so hopefully it will abate if it gets a little drier out there. But meanwhile, we have to explore all options with the community. So this is giving the community the wherewithal to address the situation within the community. So I ask for your support.
Great. Thanks, Director Reeve. Director Grant.
Yeah, we had this issue down at Kai Bay, and it actually got up as far as the golf course up at Glacier Greens, and they were nasty, there's no question. But I'm wondering how you came to bat boxes as being the alternative, because, I mean, we went through all the alternatives, and there was a couple, I can't remember what they all were. We ended up just, it was actually the lagoon down at Kai Bay, and we just excavated it. We brought an excavator in and drained it. That's how we got rid of them. I don't know if bat boxes, I mean, we kind of looked at that and went, yeah, I don't know. It's your money, but I just wonder how effective you think that'll be.
It's one option. I think right now we have to give people hope. It's at that point where they feel helpless. So maybe in communication with the residents, with the community, they themselves will come up with some good ideas. I know there's one individual that has a bug zapper, like a state-of-the-art bug zapper that is catching thousands of mosquitoes in an hour. I think he brought a bag in to show the staff here.
A bag of dead mosquitoes.
So there's another option. Apparently Canada Tire sells them for $600. Maybe there's some rebates we can do, much like our ill-fated wood stove rebate, where we can, you know, give the property owners some rebates on their bug zappers. But apparently the new generation bug zappers are very effective. Bat boxes are effective over the long term, but of course you have to coax the bats into the box in the first place. But I think that once we start the ball rolling here and get the community discussion, we'll come up with some ideas. This just gives us a little bit of a budget. I shouldn't say we, because it's the actual area association that are taking lead on this.
Director Frisch.
Yeah, well, I'm fully in favor of you spending the money how you see fit. But I come from Northern Ontario, and actually I can see why people are upset. We came out here to get away from the mosquitoes. And so I can see that it's upsetting. But absolutely, when you stop your car in northern most of Canada, they're waiting for you. So good luck.
They're actually migrants from the south. We need a big wall down there.
All right, I don't see any other comments or lights on. We have a motion moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
Thank you very much.
Right. Yes, so no media questions. Do we have a motion to move in camera? Moved and seconded by Frisch and Wilco Hamilton.